Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I'm Vishal Dahiya, and in this week we will take a look at the milestones of the year 2018 when it comes to the three armed forces. From new acquisitions to policies to joint exercises, the year 2018 has been full of activities for Indian armed forces. Significant deals were signed, such as the one for state-of-the-art mobile surface-to-air missile system S-400 Triumph and Grigorovich-class stealth frigates and multi-role utility helicopters for Indian Navy. Armed forces also got several new equipments, including M777 howitzers and K9 Vajra artillery guns. India also achieved the distinction of having a fully functional nuclear triad in 2018 with first indigenous nuclear ballistic missile submarine INS Arihant completing its first deterrence patrol. Several tests were also conducted for indigenous missiles such as beyond visual air range air-to-air missile Astra, Agni 5 and anti-tank guided missiles as well. Top commanders of the Indian Army also approved a mega plan to bring in transformative reforms in the 1.3 million strong force. All three forces also participated in several exercises throughout the year, displaying their prowess. For a closer look at the milestones of 2018 with respect to armed forces, we have with us a distinguished panel of three guests in the studio today. Let me start by introducing these gentlemen to you, beginning with retired Major General Ravi Arora, Chief Editor of Indian Military Review. We also have with us retired Air Commodore Prashant Dikshit and retired Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me begin with you, General Arora, and let's begin with the Army only, because there's been a lot of talk about bringing in reforms as well as new equipments which the Army has got, and several new deals which are under consideration as well. What would you pick up as the highest point or the most important one as far as Indian Army is concerned?
For the first time since 1980, we have new artillery guns being inducted into the Army. I think this is a very significant event. Not only the K9 self-propelled Vajra gun which you mentioned, but also the Dhanush howitzer developed by the Ordnance Factory Board based on the transfer of technology and the designs of the Bofors gun, which came in 1980s. The Dhanush gun has been developed, it has been tested over 2 years, and it is now ready for induction. Besides this, we also have the indigenous ATAGS, Advanced Towed Artillery Gun System, developed by Bharat Forge and Tatas, which has also set a world record in range and is now ready for user trials. This is also likely to be inducted shortly. We also have the M777 ultra-light howitzer, which we have imported. It has also undergone user trials. Range tables are ready and will be inducted anytime. So all at once during this year, these 4 different types of guns being ready for the Army is wonderful news for the Army, which has been waiting for more than 30 years, 38 years, for new guns to be inducted. It is a requirement of 3,800 guns, out of which 1,800 alone are towed guns. And we saw in the Kargil conflict that this is a game changer which we had been waiting for. The Bofors gun is now very old, and it was high time that these guns were brought in. Okay, so artillery guns is very significant as far as Indian Army is concerned. We'll come to the reformative process part as well, but let's first go to the other two forces. Air Commodore Dikshit, from the Indian Air Force's point of view as well, there have been several things which have happened throughout the year. Which one would you pick as the most important as far as the Indian Air Force's capability improvement is concerned?
Well, honestly speaking, Vishal, in the throes of the shortages with the combat forces of the Air Force has been living with, I think steps have been taken very positively again to augment this. Let me illustrate. The Air Force brought out the request for proposals for 114 aircraft, the tender for which was to have opened on 4th of July. Max, in the middle of the year, nothing has heard so far. Then they have got on to the AMCA project, which is being done by the ARDE for the new stealth fighter aircraft, which had to be brought in because we had called off the development of fifth generation combat aircraft being developed with the Russian connection. These are the two things which have happened. Mind you, the 114 aircraft had to be done because the number of Rafales were reduced for the government policy, and therefore they had to do. But I think the biggest thing which the Indian Air Force did this particular year is to test itself out. Whether they had
Gagan Shakti.
Yeah, Gagan Shakti, in which they flew, I think, 11,000 sorties over a period of 5 years. And as I often said in your own channels in the past, that they wanted to do long distance strikes to illustrate. They took off from a base in far east of India to cut across the Indian peninsular area to hit north of the Maldives, the Lakshadweep Islands, and down south they again took off and hit a target near the Channel 4, which Admiral will describe better, in the entrance to the sea lanes over there. These are the basically two things. Although if you recall, Apache aircraft have been ordered, Sikorsky's been ordered, they bring out a very, very positive change in the capacity of lifting platforms for the Air Force. And I believe that there are several beneficiaries of that, including border roads and things like that, especially that Sikorsky helicopter, twin rotors, that's being inducted. But if I had to sum it up very quickly, I would say that the effort has been to look at is the Air Force's own shortages and to work towards them in a more positive manner to be prepared for the tomorrows.
Okay.
That's a serious thing to be considered these days.
Okay, we'll come back to the future question as well. Let's bring in Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha here. Well, if you look at from Indian Navy's perspective, it has been a very hectic year for them. Quite a lot of activity in terms of all phases, be it India finally having the operational nuclear triad with the INS Arihant completing its deterrence patrol. Then you have stealth frigate agreement also being signed with Russia, and many other as well. Which one would you believe and pick up rather as Indian Navy's highest or topmost achievement this year?
I think, Vishal, the topmost achievement is the commissioning of Arihant, and Arihant completing the first deterrence patrol. Mind you, it is built by DRDO and Navy jointly, and a lot of it has also been built by the private sector. So Navy is, getting the private sector into indigenous components into our submarine arm is one very big achievement. And keeping ourselves again on the subsurface par is the commissioning of the diesel submarine, the first one, which has got commissioned, the Scorpion class submarines, and the second one is to follow. On the surface front, we have had the induction of the Kolkata class destroyers. For the first time, Vishal, we have long-range SAMs of the Barak variety, which is jointly developed by DRDO and the Israeli company. It has a range of 80 kilometers, and 80 kilometers gives you a very, very formidable air defense measure, within the envelope where the fleet is likely to be moving, either in a force projection or in attack. And as far as the airborne assets are concerned, the signing of the S-90R helicopters, which was a long-felt requirement of an ASW helicopter, that has been signed. To my mind, in three fields, that is surface, subsurface, and surface and air elements. These are the three big achievements which I would like to point out.
Okay, let's come back to the Army, General Arora, and something which we spoke about in the first few minutes as well. The entire process of reforms as far as the Indian Army is concerned was something which was talked about a lot in the throughout the year, and top commanders had also given their go-ahead. So how would you look at this entire reform process and how it might benefit as far as Indian Army is concerned?
You know, this transformation studies ordered by the Army started sometime at the beginning of this year, and they have been deliberated by the Army commanders twice during the year. And these studies, the recommendations are now being evaluated before they are sent to the government, I believe, in the beginning of next year. They are to do with rationalization, reorganization to improve operational efficiency, keeping with the latest doctrines. So it has been talked about that instead of divisions in some sectors, we'll have integrated battle groups of all arms, smaller, tighter, with better command and control, with all the wherewithal that they require to carry out operations. Then there is a rationalization of the organization of army headquarters, and looking at the terms of engagement of the JCOs and other ranks, including their cadre review. The idea is to save money and to save manpower, not to cut down things or to give it back to the government, but to get more money for capital schemes, for acquiring new weapon platforms, and strength for raising additional units for specialized warfare purposes. So this is a work in progress. It's not a milestone of this year per se, because when it comes about and the way it comes about and the measures in which it is implemented will show whether it's a big event. Because in the past we have seen almost 13 studies carried out. The results have not been encouraging. Whatever is within the power of the army to implement, they have done so. But when it comes to getting the orders of the government to implement some of those important aspects, we fall short. They are not forthcoming. So let's see how this plays out.
Okay, this is something, one aspect which we need to go ahead and keep an eye on. Comrade Dixit, one more aspect when it comes to Indian force, which was being talked about was the work in progress on the indigenous fighter Tejas. Be it about Mark II or be it about ISA radars being procured for the LCA. So how do you see Tejas filling in those gaps which you were mentioning in your earlier answer about the overall numbers as far as the fighting squadron strength of the Indian Air Force is concerned?
Vishal, the HAL boss, in a statement made yesterday, said that during this year they will give only 9 Tejas aircraft. The rest will come down the line. And when he's talking about the 1A version out of 83 are being ordered, that is still not being considered to place an order on HAL. So all I can say that development on that field is uncertain. But I want to make another comment, if I may. When you talked about the Agni 5 and you talked about the utilization of space for special channels for Air Force and the Navy in your last program, let me quickly tell you...
The GSAT-7A, which was
Yes, sir. I think those are greater achievements for larger space applications. What is happening is that along with the Navy, there's the communication transponders, 40 of them are being placed for the Air Force, and down the line they'll come to the Army. The greater advantages will come in the strategic posture of not merely the Air Force, but all the 3 services. And I think this will add to the larger game plan of creating your own space command, your own cyber command, and your own special operations command, which are being considered all over. About the Agni 5, let me add to your statement to say that those were user trials. The Agni 5 and the SOS series are already under development, maybe for the induction into Strategic Forces Command, which is manned by all the 3 services. That is what is happening. And let the rest of the world take note that we have arrived at that. And we are thus able to neutralize targets as far as 5,000 kilometers away. So on the strategic field, where all the 3 forces join up, I think there is a great activity visible. And that fills my heart to share that notion with you.
Okay.